Good evening. We'll go ahead and call our November board meeting to order. Now I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Kinzer to call the roll.
Ms. Parker? Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Pennings? Here. Mr. Moore?
Present.
Mr. Atkinson? Mr. Bates? Mr. Beaver? Here. Ms. Parker? That's not right. You. Powers. I don't know what I'm thinking. Ms. Morency? And Mr. Dudley, and we welcome you back. I think that's what I was thinking. I was way ahead of myself.
Thank you, Ms. Kinzer. And we are very happy to see you back, Mr. Dudley. Hope you're feeling better. We'll now take a moment for Pledge of Allegiance. It looks like we've got some friends from McDowell here. And then after the pledge, we'll just ask that you continue standing for a moment of silence. All right, and we have a reminder there about our mission, and our next item is to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion by Mr. Bates, second by Mr. Moore? Seeing no lights, we're ready to vote.
Please vote now.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sounds good. That motion did pass. We'll now move on to recognition and announcements. Looks like our first item up is Spring Hill FCCLA, and I think they brought some goodies.
This is my wonderful group of ladies that are awesome at cooking all the time, let me tell you, and baking. This is Miss Alcorn. I'm going to have her introduce the girls and tell exactly what they won on their prizes when they went to the Tennessee State Fair.
My name is Debbie Alcorn. I'm the Human Services teacher at Spring Hill High School, and my FCCLA and nutrition class did some really wonderful things at the Tennessee State Fair and won some wonderful prizes and awards, and I'm going to let them tell you about it.
There you go.
I'm Devin Gillen. I'm FCCLA's Vice President of Community Service. In September, our 2 nutrition classes in FCCLA created 15 baked goods that were entered into the Tennessee State Fair Creative Arts Baking Competition. We received 13 ribbons for our entry. Our banana bread won Best in Show, and we won 5 first-place ribbons for our chess pie, which we gave you today, our pecan pie, our chocolate oatmeal no-bake cookies, our earthquake cake, and our jalapeno cornbread.
I'm Kayla Lawson. I am FCCLA's president, and we have 5 second-place ribbons as well, and we got second in cheddar cheese biscuits, carrot cake, Oreo balls, chocolate chip cookies, and chocolate chip blondie brownies.
I'm Pooja Patel. I'm the secretary of FCCLA. We won 2 third-place ribbons for sweet potato pie and salted caramel cake.
And we hope you are enjoying the chess pie. Thank you for letting us show what we did.
Thank you. That's some pretty good odds there. It seems like everything won, it looks like. That's amazing. So congratulations to y'all. Our next item, it looks like, is Dr. Jackson. If you'd like to come forward.
Testing, testing. My name is Dr. Ryan Jackson. I'm the executive lead principal of the Mount Pleasant Arts Innovation Zone. Specifically, I'm housed out of Mount Pleasant High School, but I'm here today representing our entire campus. And I'm excited to announce fully to you that Mount Pleasant has been accepted into the Global Learning Network. And the Global Learning Network constitutes 30 schools worldwide, ranging from California to as far as South Korea. It also includes Germany, Switzerland, Taiwan, Singapore. I know all these countries because I had an interview with somebody on the phone today regarding who all would be at this convening that's coming up in Boston. And the reality is Mount Pleasant was chosen as one of 17 schools in the United States, 3 specifically from, did somebody cut me off? I thought somebody muted me. I was like, okay. I will keep it succinct. We were selected along with 2 other schools in Tennessee, and one of those schools is out of Chattanooga, STEM Chattanooga. So knowing that school and knowing that principal very well, the vetting process was incredible because that is an incredible school. The other out of Tennessee was Middle College out of Memphis. Mount Pleasant was specifically chosen because of our innovation in regards to our approach to industry and how we have formed partnerships with the likes of Parker Hannifin, formerly Clarkor, just signed a 3-year deal with NASA as part of their Hunch program. You know, but what remained clear through the interview process and then when we were awarded was there's a growing concern of the shortfall in skilled labor. If you start looking at the data by 2024, Mount Pleasant is making a committed effort, concentrated efforts, which I believe align with the 7 keys to college and career readiness to get our students ready for those skilled labor positions. And we're doing it through the programs like Project Lead the Way, like Mechatronics. But the unique factor for us is we embed art into our STEM curriculum. So creating this holistic learning model that gets kids thinking like creators, not just consumers of information. So I've said that enough that it sounds so familiar to me, but the rest of the world is starting to think like this as well. And so what's happening here in just a couple of weeks is myself and my assistant principal, Eric Hughes, we will travel to Boston where we will convene with these other 30 schools from around the country and try to look at the oncoming crisis that is, this shortfall in not only skilled labor, but how we adapt education to these new practices. And I told this guy on the phone today, as proud as I am to be, from Tennessee and to be as close to General Motors and self-driving cars that are just around the corner, it means something to say that you're at a school that's pushing that needle to get kids truly prepared as we run deeper into the 21st century. So I know I spoke to you guys last spring when we had the big check presentation from Parker Hannifin, but I stand here before you very humbly today and say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to do this kind of work at Mount Pleasant. I'm watching it change lives daily. I'm watching kids get excited about school today, and I'm watching, our attendance rate go up as we see students that want to come to school because of this experiential learning model that we've put in place. And then I listen to people like Ryan Pastrana from Parker Hannifin talk about what it means as an industry leader to know that kids are being prepared, for these kind of trade skills. So thank you for allowing us to do that at Mount Pleasant.
Congratulations. That was awesome. Sounds like there's victories all over the place, state fairs and international opportunities, so that's amazing. Thank y'all both for sharing that with us, Dr. Potts and Dr. Jackson. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Dudley?
Once again, I want to thank you, Ms. Jackson, and you know, these two presentations just proves that we're not only able to compete with our schools here in Tennessee, but now we're beginning to get recognition internationally, and so you know, hopefully our students, as they leave our campuses, they will go on and have good collegiate backgrounds, but when they go into the workforce, they will be prepared to do it globally, and so it's very important. Years ago, most of the graduates of this Maury County system were not expected to do much more than just go into a farming background, and so this is changing. I mean, we still need the farmers, but we also need people prepared to go into our plants and work and then become engineers and develop and design products that are going to continue carrying us into space, and then these driverless cars and all types of new projects, and so it's good to see that Maury County students can be part of that. So thank you, Ms. Jackson, and I'll thank all the staff of the Maury County school system.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. We'll now move on to Maury County Education Association. Mr. Huebner.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I do want to let you know that Ron and I met on this and appreciate him reaching out on this, but we'd also sent some representatives to some of the meetings on the calendars, and these are two excellent calendars. Really like the work been done on them, and it's good to see they're on a 2-year basis. It really makes planning easier for a lot of people. You know, I don't know if we've done that before, but some people plan out conferences years in advance, and if they don't have that information, it's hard to get in or get administrative approval. And you think 2 years out, but some of that does exist. So these are excellent calendars, and I hope you all will approve them. I was even mentioned to a colleague beforehand, we're out at Christmas at a great time. The week after, when we're out, Williams County's still meeting, and those kids have about a week and a half total to count the New Year's and everything. I don't think that's long enough. So it's not just about the time away and the vacations, but it's such an excellent schedule. I've also bragged to people about our calendar that many times when we have those Mondays that are like Martin Luther King or Labor Day, the Friday before becomes a professional development day. And you say, well, that's just a day off from the kids. But I think it helps them some family planning, some things they can do together, and maybe they will get out of town or do some things in that short time. Makes it a little bit longer. So I remember years ago when I was in Williams County, they called it a fall break. It was a Monday and Tuesday, and teachers had to come back Tuesday for professional development. That's not a fall break. That's a 3-day weekend. So excellent calendar. Good job with the committee there, Dr. Wood. I know Ms. Gagliano is still getting her feet very wet and encountering probably a lot of twists and bumps along the way, but and I wouldn't ask for this in December, but I hope at some point, I would hope maybe in January you could present kind of an update on where we were and where we are in January as you work on getting those issues, because there's going to be still some issues. But I think you've made some good progress, and we'd just like to hear a report if you could build that into the agenda, maybe your work session in January, and then build it into the agenda. We'd like to hear that presentation. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Huebner. We always appreciate your input and from all the teachers. Mr. Perryman, can you check and see if we have anyone signed up on the public delegation? All right. Making this quick. Moving on to staff reporting. I don't think we have any, do we? All right, next item is consent items, and several items that we had discussed at the work session have been moved to the consent items. So if there are no objections, if we can have a motion to approve the consent items. Motion by Mr. Penning, second by Mr. Moore. Mr. Bates?
Yeah, if I could just get one clarification. I noticed that the naming of the new school is on the consent agenda, and I wasn't clear, I guess, which name was selected if we approve the consent agenda.
I think it was wasn't it Battleground? Battle Creek.
Battle Creek, okay. All right, just wanted to note that for the minute so we know what we're voting on. Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote. All right, it looks like that motion did pass, so those consent items have been approved. We'll move on to our committee reports. Our first item is from the policy section. I think the only item for action is related to the policies to post, and there were 2 policies there. When's the schedule? That's okay. Do we have a motion to approve those? Motion by Mr. Moore. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Morency or Mr. Pennings. Any discussion on either of those policies? And one of those policies is actually, the request was to waive the 30-day posting, and that is included in Mr. Moore's motion. Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote. Please vote. Ms. Kinzer, did you want Ms. Shirley to record your vote? Oh, it's not showing up for some reason. Vote is yes. All right, so that motion did pass. Moving on, we'll go to the zoning and facilities section. We'll turn that over to Stan. Mr. Breeden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was not here. I apologize for the work session. Was at a conference, but I know members of our staff were here and you heard presentations. I don't know if there's any of these that you have any specific questions on, but I think we did present these items. Most of them, there's one that's for your information that has to do with the redistricting task force recommendation. The others were actually to ask for your approval. I will note that the first one, I think, is the project schedules for the new schools, and we did have a presentation to you on a proposed schedule of how those that pricing would be delivered to you, and those schools will be happened. Our builder through Hewlett Spencer has said that this is the best way to make the schedule to have the schools open by our August starting date. So we had put those forth for you as a recommendation for approval. I mean, I guess you could take no action and we could still proceed on those and you could approve them at the time we come forward with things according to that schedule, but it's just however y'all would want to proceed with that.
All right. You want to take, Mr. Moore?
I was just going to make a motion to approve items 8B 1 through 3. Is that correct? We don't need to do anything on 4?
I don't believe we do.
Okay, and that's my motion.
Second.
All right. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Mr. Bates?
If I could just get some additional information, so on item B3, if we approve that, what we would be approving is that to go back to the commission to ask that they issue another bond based upon their debt capacity for the $9 million list that we're looking at, or what is that?
No, sir. What we are actually recommending is, based on the meeting that we attended at the county commission, there was talk that there could possibly be an additional $18 to $20 million in capital funding.
Right.
And so what we would like to do is pursue a preliminary budget for the full Spring Hill High School edition. In addition to that, also to address the $3.7 million worth of remaining items on the EMG first year list.
Okay.
So, but what we'd like to do is put that together as a package, work with the architect to come up with a budget, come back to you, let you affirm that, and then we would go to the county commission and ask for the funding.
Okay, so I think you answered my question. So this list that is with our agenda pack, it's prioritized list for bond premium. The total amount is 8.952426. Is that if we approve this is what we would go to them for, or would it be?
And no, and we might have made that a little bit confusing. That is the list that you had already approved. And we went to because we were asked to bring a list for up to $9 million for a possible bond premium. And the commission just voted not to do that, or I don't know that I think it was the budget committee voted not to do that because upon advice of bond counsel, if they went with the bond premium could not be spent until the bond was completed. So what they decided to do was they voted to use the bond premium to offset the cost of the bond. But at the same time, at the same meeting, the question was asked of the bond counsel, if we did that, what is our borrowing power? And
So
at that meeting,
freed them up.
yeah,
go
freed
get
them
another
up to
bond.
say we could possibly borrow another $18 to $20 million without a tax increase.
Okay.
And so we felt like leaving that meeting, that there was comments made that they would be receptive to doing that for a Spring Hill High School edition. That was specifically said in the meeting. Now, what I guess this is just me. I would like to see us be able to do that. Plus, out of this list, there was $3.7 million to continue to attack our capital needs.
Right.
I'm hoping that we can do both for less than $20 million. I don't know that until we go back and meet with the architects, but I'd like to pursue it from that angle of doing both.
But the motion that's on the table right now, I guess I
could clarify that.
Okay.
Since I made the motion and brought it back. All I'm, in my motion would be, is what we're asking for here is for Stan to pursue and find out what some costs would be and bring that to us. There are no costs to us for this. So they would just be getting some numbers from the architect and some other people that are involved in that, bringing us some numbers, and there would be no cost to the school system to get to that point. So we're not spending any money or asking for money. They're just gonna bring us some estimates on what it would cost to do the addition at the Spring Hill High School.
So what about the other items that were on the list?
Those are
Like
just
us-
FYI items. The recommendation motion that's on here that's shown on item B3 is actually all that we're requesting.
And I just put that information on there just as kind of a reminder, this is what you'd previously approved, and I apologize if that caused confusion.
Okay, so the motion that's on the table is simply to get numbers for the Spring Hill edition.
Yes.
This is not to request funding from the county commission at this time. And we could, I guess, in theory, still go back to this list to ask for these
Whatever
additional
we want to do.
items.
I'm
Okay.
just asking for informational numbers.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that clarification. Now I know what I'm voting on. I guess I do have some reluctance, the way the motion is currently crafted with us voting on all three items. I did have some reluctance on the Spring Hill Middle School schematic design where we're approving the plans for the middle school. I believe, my understanding is around a $40 million project. Is that correct, Mr. Breeden?
It's in the list. I think they've estimated in their design costed $33 million for construction, but it's a $38 million total project roughly.
Okay. I guess I'm reluctant to approve the funding to go ahead and solidify the design at this time, just in light of our financial situation that we have right now. I understand that we've got growth needs, and we've got to deal with those growth needs. I completely understand that, but we're in a real vice right now where I think we are addressing our growth needs, but we have other needs of our other schools that are being neglected. They've been neglected for several years, and we can't even provide funding for the meager $38,000 that our principals are asking for right now as far as needs. And we have other HVAC needs throughout the county. I would like for us to take another look at this budget that we currently have for the middle school, to maybe give it some more thought to see if maybe we could make some reasonable and minor cuts. Now, I think we want to go ahead and do that on the front end so that that could maybe be implemented in the design. You know, if we make a reduction of the budget, they may need to go back to the drawing board, and maybe we don't need this, we don't need that. Maybe they could cull it down. And what I'm looking at is something along the lines of maybe 5 to 10% reduction of the budget, so that that would free us up to be able to take care of some of these existing needs that, again, these have accumulated for years and years and years, and they're backlogged. So I guess as the motion is currently stated, since we're combining all those, I'll have to vote no on this motion.
Ms. Powers?
I agree with Mr. Bates. I'm not in favor of moving forward with the new construction in Spring Hill. I would like to see numbers for the addition at Spring Hill High School. So I'd like, is there a way for us to separate this out?
Mr. Pennings?
We've bounced this around now for the last 2 months. We asked for the 2 new schools. The county commission funded the 2 new schools. We have approximately $7 million spent right now as far as the 2 new schools have gone. And like I said last week or 2 weeks ago, I would much rather have 2 schools sitting there that can take another 200 or 300 students in a couple of years than having 200 or 300 students come in and we have no place to put them. I think we've bounced this around long enough. I think we ought to approve the projects as we have said in numerous meetings, and we just keep procrastinating, and these builders and construction people can't wait forever.
Ms. Kinzer?
I know you're tired of me reminding you of this. I do agree, Mr. Bates, there's a lot of needs and a lot of money that needs to be spent on a lot of schools, but the funds that the commission have appropriated can only be used on these schools. We don't have to spend it all, that's for sure. I personally spend a lot of time, not a lot of time, but more than usual, at looking at those plans of the middle school. I really like the way it's laid out. I think it is more, it's more traditional in the way that it is. As the elementary school is more PBL, and once again, PBL is just another name for another concept at this time that's been around a long time, I think. I really think that we need to move forward on these schools. I think the commission has backed us in what we've asked for, and we've legitimized that we need it, and I think the design is good, and I think Jamie at the work session was very aware that we need to make cuts. Where the cuts need to be made, we can still do that if it comes in any place where it's in that correct, that if we once we put it out for bid, we don't really know where we are, right? I mean, until you those bids come in, we don't know how much the cost is going to be or anything. I think we need to move forward, and my vote would be to move forward on this design.
Ms. Morency?
Can we pull these out individually and vote on them individually?
We have an existing motion on the floor. Is- Ms. Powers?
You know, given some recent transactions, it's weakened my confidence that I'm getting good information from central office. And I think that we're making these decisions based on information we were handed. And I have now got reason to question it. So I'm going to be voting no if we're going to keep them all together.
All right. Mr. Bates?
Just one more reminder. This money that we're talking about, this is coming out of our operating. The county took 12 cents away from us that we're not going to have, that's not going to roll into fund balance. So I understand that the county's position, the commission's position, that they want to take care of these needs. I want to take care of these needs. And I'm not trying to put things off. This is not putting things off. This is not delaying or saying that we're not going to build the new schools. It's just to take another look to see if maybe we can save some money. And if we do save some money, then I would think prudence would be that we would go back to the county to say, look, we have these other needs. Here's some additional funds that we have saved and we'd like to apply towards some of our existing schools. It'll be up to the county. If the commission then turns that down, that's going to be up to them, and that'll be on them. But I think we will be exercising our due diligence to the needs of our current schools if we at least take a look at these and see what our options are, and that's the only thing that I'm advocating.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. I would just say, I think that going back to our EMG report, which is another report that we got and have relied on extensively, the first year we needed to spend $50 million, and we spent 10. So we've spent a fifth of what was needed to get all of our schools up to where they need. So to spend 65 on 2 is just a little tough to stomach right now, in my opinion. Not saying that the growth isn't there, but I think that Ms. Powers, I think she said it best at our work session when she said that I'm concerned about the children that are in the seats, not just the hypothetical ones that may be in the seats in the future. So those 200 or 300 seats that might be added, I'm more concerned about the 12,000 kids that are actually in our schools and don't have reliable HVAC services, don't have reliable plumbing, have some of those other issues. And I feel like we should be addressing those issues first and foremost. I understand the county commission's position. I appreciate the confidence that they showed in us in approving these 2 projects. I don't appreciate the way that the bond was structured, though, because I think that we needed that flexibility. And as the numbers have not borne out, that an elementary school has, I don't think that our elementary schools have shown that much growth in the last year, and that's concerning to me because I fully anticipate that we will open up an elementary school that will not have nearly the number of children that we were told it would have. And that's going to put egg on our face, and it's going to put egg on the county commission's face. And I really just don't feel like we're in a position right now with the information that we have to move forward on some of these things. I understand that may not be popular, but I think that we have to rely on the information as we get it. And those facts have changed, in my opinion, based on the information at the beginning of this school year. Mr. Moore.
Jamie, could you answer a question for me? If this doesn't go through tonight, what does that affect to our timeline? As far as the middle school? Middle school.
The middle school wouldn't open in August of 2019 if this didn't go through tonight. We're on course with the elementary school, of course, but if we can't go to CDs all the way through on the middle school, that would certainly put us back. Depends on what the board's pleasure would be, that it step back and redesign or just put it off for 30 days, or I don't know what will end up happening, but it'll put us back some. Just depends on how long.
Okay. So, and all we would be, again, this is outside of you, but I'll get to you in just a second on one more question. Okay. We're just approving essentially the funding to continue, I guess, to this point. To Mr. Bates' point about being able to continue to whittle down the cost, I see nothing in what we would approve tonight that would stop us from continuing to, and I've had extensive conversations with Jamie as well, that he intends to continue to try to get that cost down, and they have been consistently. And I don't think that stops were this to be approved tonight, that doesn't, as a matter of fact, I can almost guarantee you it's not gonna stop, and I would expect that we all continue to keep that moving forward, of being able to refine that cost and change it. I'm just more worried that we're gonna get to a point where as he said, it would put us behind on being able to open both of those schools at the same time, which is also coinciding with the redistricting timeline. These are a lot of pieces here that we've intentionally scheduled to fit together, and I think they fit together well. I'm just worried that that's going to start to impact that. And Mr. Bates, to your point about being able to, I understand wanting to save the money, but again, from what I understand of how the bond was structured, it's not like we get to free up 10% of that and apply it somewhere else. That's not an option. Now, we could ask for that to happen, potentially. I don't know. That's a legal question with how the bond is actually worded. I don't even know if the county commission can go back and change that after the fact. I'm not sure they can. As a matter of fact, my understanding at this point is that they can't. Once it's issued, it's issued. That's not something within their control, that they can't just go back and ask for it to be restructured. That's my understanding. Obviously, we have Jake that can answer that for sure.
It's been issued. I don't think there's any change.
Okay. So,
I haven't asked that specific question of bond counsel, but that's my.
but that would be information that might be helpful to know. But my understanding is that it can't. It's not something the county commission can just go back and change where they want to apply that money. So that may not be an option. I'm just really frustrated again that we're going backward on this. We've spent a lot of money on this. If we wanted to change some of these things, it should have been done months ago. I think we're finally getting to the point, as I said at the work session, where all of these pieces are coming together. I don't disagree at all that we should be addressing many other issues, but we have to move ahead, and you have to pick one and start on it. That's just the reality of it. As we've, on the last 3 years I've been on here, there's been things that we voted on that I didn't agree with. We spent a lot of money on Central High School. If we want to go back and talk about where we could have spent that money, we could start doing that too. But we did it, and we need to move ahead, and we've got to pick something else and work on that, and pick something else and work on that. I really feel like these schools and the redistricting will get us to a point where we can really start to addressing the maintenance issues, which are the next big thing. I think this finally gets us to a point, as I said the other day, that gets us to a point where we're not having to build new schools every 3 years, like Williamson County is having to do every 1 year. But we've got to start moving ahead with these things and can't keep going backwards and waffling on them.
And just to Mr. Moore's point, I mean, I think he makes some good points. I mean, I'm sensitive to the timetable. I really am. I'm concerned about that. And I agree that we can probably still look at ways of maybe making cuts even after the design is done. I guess I'm still, and I've voiced this before. This is not new. I'm concerned with the train leaving the station. You know, once the design is in place and it's in concrete, it's just hard to then start going back to the drawing board to try to find ways of saving. So that's my concern. As far as the county commission and the way the bond is structured, I'm a firm believer that there's some bright minds can put their heads together and they can figure out how to do it. They can either go back and they can amend that resolution, or if more money comes in the bank and it pays off this bond and it frees them up on debt capacity, they turn around and do just like what they're talking about right here. That's going to free up their debt capacity, and they issue another bond. I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. And what is at stake for me comes back to if everything else was equal, if the county had fully funded the needs of our current schools and funded the needs that we do have, and nobody's arguing that point, that we do have these needs to deal with the growth, then maybe we wouldn't be in this predicament. But we're in the predicament where we got Part A, but we didn't get Part B. And we got full on A, and we got nothing on B. And so those two have to be, we have to deal with that. I mean, that's just the hand that was dealt to us. I know we've talked about this repeatedly, but that was the hand that has been dealt with us, and it's a changed circumstance. And we have to be like, okay, I've got all these needs. No money's going to be going into fund balance anymore. What am I going to do? And here is a potential way of maybe trying to address some of those needs. So,
I just want to clarify something what Jamie had told us during the work session. You had told us between this design and a conventional design, price-wise, it really wasn't that much difference in it as far as PBL. This may help clear some of this up, whether it's going to save us money or not.
think it's important to remember that what you guys hired us to do and what we have been doing the whole time that we've been working on the middle school is shrink wrapping it around program to give you the most cost-effective building. Remember, we have a ceiling. We have to deliver both these projects underneath that ceiling and make sure all of Stan's stuff is in there as well. Everything is into that 65. So when we initially budgeted the middle school, we had to really scale it back from the first drawings that ESA did. And we've been through how many iterations of that drawing now? A few, doing exactly what you just mentioned. The PBL factor, and that word gets used probably a little bit too much. As John spoke last time, this is really a traditional school that allows for more collaboration and learning with the children based on the fact that you have the operable nanowall system, which allows the classrooms to open up and let the children get into larger areas to learn in. That nanowall system, and for lack of a better word, if no one knows what that means, it's basically automatic garage door window type classroom walls that open up and allow you to get out and learn in groups. You know, budgeting for that specific item is around $500,000. So how much is the PBL factor for this school? Like I said in the work session, it was less than $1 million was my exact statement. I went back and asked Bell, you know, how much is that nanowall system coming in at? Have you got some budget prices on it? And it's between $500,000, $600,000. So that's probably the truest answer to that question. Now, you could go back and replace that clear roll-up wall, window wall, with a regular brick and block wall. You'll have still some associated costs with that. So what's your real savings there to replace that and change and switch those out? So again, the school can be used in a lot of different ways that it is now, and we have been trying to make sure that it wasn't over the top in a PBL manner. That's what we've been doing for months now, to make sure that we get this project within budget so that there's no egg on anybody's face, including the boards with the county commission. I hope that answered your question.
I think I did. Yeah, Madam Chair, I call for question. Question means we take a motion whether we're going to vote on this now or just keep procrastinating for the next hour and a half like we did 2 weeks ago.
All right. Ready to vote on the question? I think it's a subsidiary. We're voting to stop debate. That is what the calling the question is. And then if that passes, then we will proceed immediately to vote on the motion as it currently exists, just for clarification.
Yeah, give Shirley, yeah. That one, yeah, you have to edit that box.
There might not be any more discussion.
I don't think there is. There weren't any lights on, but we can go. Do you want to withdraw the call for the question? All right. Seeing no other lights, it looks like Mr. Pennings has agreed to withdraw the call for the question. So we will now be voting on the existing motion, which is to approve items B1, 2, and 3. We're ready to vote. Mr. Moore and Mr. Pennings, I believe, were first and the second. Okay. That motion did pass. And I believe on the redistricting task force, you said that that was really, there's nothing to be done on that at this point.
Yes, ma'am, if I could speak to that. Again, that was brought forward as an information, but to clarify what we had proposed originally, and we want to make sure the board is, I guess, again, not speaking to this would say we continue with our process. And the original process is the redistricting task force would bring forth a recommendation by November. That will be posted for public comment in January and February. And so what we will do is we will reserve a time during the work session during January and February if anybody wants to come and make a public comment. We're gonna try to have this ready. Been talking with Mr. Pearman about this. By the 1st of January, we're gonna try to have a packet that we can publish, also with Ms. Doddridge about this, about publicizing this, that will have street by street. If you live on this street and it's being changed, you were going here and we'll put all that out and then invite people to come and make their comment during those 2 months work sessions. So that's the next step in this process.
All right, sounds good.
Mr.
Dudley.
Okay, now, whether, if I put in my street address and it's going to tell me that after this new rezoning takes place, it will tell me where, for all 3 classifications, elementary, middle, and high school, where my child would attend school.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to actually have it do that electronically. My understanding, and help me, Eric, is we're probably going to produce a list.
We're going to produce a spreadsheet that will show the current all 3 grade spans, and in the same line, the future the proposed all 3 grade spans.
And we would do that for streets that will change.
We're going to do every street in the county.
Oh, every street in the county, okay.
Every road, we're going to tell you where you are now.
So we'll have a list, and you find your street, this is where you're zoned, all 3 places, and this is where you would be districted for all 3 places. Yes, sir.
So in looking at that, a parent should not have any trouble that come X date, that any of my child, regardless of where he falls into the grade categories, would definitely be able to determine where he would be zoned to go to school.
That is in our intent, is to try to make that as clear as possible, yes, sir.
Okay. And then my understanding, I was told that the redistricting is not going to happen till what date?
With the start of school in 2019.
2019, so that gives plenty of time to research. If I'm looking at a new home, I can determine in plenty of time where the zoning would be, or if I want to move and change homes, I've got plenty of time.
Yes, sir.
To do that.
And yes, sir, that is our intent. And then if this is approved by the board, I think we'd set March as the date to approve it. We would actually send notice home with every student before the end of the school year, notifying them of that. So they would try to make every kind of effort we could to have clear communication and clear opportunity for people to be able to find out what the new school districts will look like.
Although we would encourage people not to panic, because our goals as a board is to offer equal education irregardless of what school you're zoned to. I mean, we want to have top-notch offerings at all of our schools, and we don't really want to have a major difference in them. We'd like for them to be equal, other than a few class offerings because of certain schools feeding into these type subject categories or whatever. So, all right, I just need some clarification there.
Any other comments from the board members? All right, I think you are on a good path, Mr. Braden. Community relations, I don't see anything. Do you want to? Sure.
It's Christmas parade time, so Saturday, December 2nd, we're going to have a bus with lights on it at the Mount Pleasant Parade. If you would like to ride, if you'll get there by 4, the parade starts at 5, and then the Columbia Parade is December 4th, and the parade begins at 7. Again, we'll have the bus there, and it'll be in line, but as long as you'll be there by, I'd say, 6:30 if anyone's interested.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. And because of the Christmas parade on Monday night, we've actually moved our work session to Tuesday, December 5th here at 6 o'clock. So, yeah.
I want to say thank you to Mr. Perryman, who is taking the lead on getting the bus ready and to assure that it'll be in the parade. So thank you.
All right. Hope everyone can participate in those. Our next item is new business. There are 2 calendars that we discussed at the work session. Motion by Mr. Moore to approve. Second. The 2018-2019 school calendar and the 2019-2020 school calendar. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that? Bates. All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote. All right, that motion did pass. Our next item is the organizational charts, job description, I'm sorry. Copies of those have been provided to everyone. I would imagine that we'll just move this to the work session to give everyone time to look at this, unless anyone has any comments to make tonight. Ms. Morency?
I just want to thank you for putting this together for us. I know it took a lot of work, and I appreciate the effort that it took. I think it'll be beneficial to the whole board to know. At least I know that it will be to me, so thank you again.
Thank you. We can discuss that at our December work session. In other business, strategic planning, there's some information that we talked about at the work session, and we're still moving forward to try to get that finalized and should have something hopefully by the December work session for us to review. Next item is bus advertising revenue recommendation. That's been revised since our work session. I think we probably do need to make a motion on that recommendation if we would like to.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any idea how long it's going to take to get the 30,000 that we have committed to Murray Alliance?
The initial sale, they presented us a symbolic check, and they had at that point raised $17,000 in annual revenue. Since that time, we have sold several more, but I apologize, I have not been able to get an update. But we've probably added how many more?
They're going to come tomorrow with 29 more.
29, which would that would probably equal, I think it's about. I don't know, but 20, I think when we got to 17,000, it was like 38? 39, so we were 17,000, 39, we got 29 more, so we got to be getting pretty close to 30,000
So
right now.
fairly quickly we'll be able to.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am, I think so.
You.
We have a motion and a second. That was the motion by Mr. Moore and a second by Mr. Pennings. I would just like to say, I think that in the future, if we're going to make this investment with Murray Alliance, it might be good just to have this money in the bank to use for that, or for other public relations type items as opposed to specifically allocating it for some of these other things that are in there.
Can I go?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make a motion so we can officially talk about it. Sorry.
Oh, you did make a motion.
I know, we were talking about it before we had a motion. It was getting procedurally. Anyway, I would agree with Ms. Parker on that. I really would rather see us actually budget for the Murray Allowance money rather than have it come out of this bus thing. That would be my preference. And I just want to clarify, this is just for year one, correct? This isn't how we're going to do it every year. We're just considering this for the first year, or is this how we're going to do it every year?
However you make the motion. If you just want to make it for year one, we certainly can bring back another recommendation next year. We had originally, before we got into the Murray Alliance thing, we thought this might be an ongoing process. But what we were suggesting is we would bring back the allocation to you each year and say, here's how much money, here's how, so you would approve it each year. Because what we're talking about doing, if I understand right, is we will allocate this money all year, and then at the end of the year, move it out, and it would come back to you in the form of a budget amendment. So you would, so it would be in next year's budget. We accumulate the money this year, and then that's what we'd originally planned. Now, you may want the Murray Alliance just as soon as we get 30,000, take it out and do that. But the rest of it, we were not going to spend until the end of the year. We were going to accumulate all the way at the end of the year, and it would be our funds to use next year for those two purposes. Because, again,
Accumulate, and I think we were hoping to avoid having to take money out of fund balance. But that money's already been spent by Murray Alliance. I'm fairly confident based on the events that they've held on our behalf and the continuing actions that they've taken. So I personally, while I did make this suggestion, since you weren't there, we didn't know when the money was actually going to come in and how much it was going to be. So I will probably be voting no on this just for that reason, because I think we are going to need to go ahead and I think we should be budgeting this this money for the future.
May I just speak?
Sure.
Just to say that, if you vote no, we can certainly bring back the recommendation again next month. But again, we were anticipating for the original part of the motion, this was going to be accumulate annually. So it wouldn't matter if you made the decision next month. We've just had a lot of people ask us where you're going to spend the money for. And we've had that from county commissioners. We've had that from, citizens in the school. And we just wanted to be able to say we're going to use it for the benefit of. And we didn't have an answer for that until
And I think that we do need to have that. I certainly agree with that. I've had those same questions from county commissioners as well, and I was curious as to what we were going to spend it on too. Personally, I think that the recommendation is still a little vague as to how it really is going to be spent in all honesty, but because we don't really know exactly what is going to be in, and so it's hard to budget for that. But I just go back to we have a marketing public relations person that has a budget of 0, and so I still feel like we've not funded that position fully, and if that's the will of the board going forward, I think we need to evaluate whether that's needed.
I would say I would be happy to withdraw my motion if this would like to go back to the next work session to discuss further, some more thought once we put into it. If it doesn't have to take place now, then I can withdraw my motion on that.
Mr. Pennings, are you agreeable to that? All right. We will put that on the work session. No instructional, low purchase bids, and no operational. So we can move on to finance.
Do you want me to just go ahead? Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to ask specific questions. The first section is the budget amendments that really were discussed at the work session. And the second set is the budget amendments that resulted as an end product of that work session, getting those expenditures placed into budget amendments so we could get that taken care of. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll move to approve the first set of budget amendments that we already, I guess we had at the budget session. So under item 10E, 1 little a, I guess? Or just one? Just one. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about the second set of budget
Sure.
amendments.
The second set only includes items that are non-personnel in nature, salary and benefits. Those really need to wait till the money is received from the state, BEP. And the pre-K involved one salary and benefits, and the others included finance, IT, and HR. And they were spelled out there for you, how much was in the budget, how much was requested to adjust the position, and then how much would be needed through the end of the year to fulfill that. Since there is a budget in place and we should be receiving the BEP money in January, February, if you act on it at that time, there'll be enough budget to carry it through, and then that will reconcile before year end. To take care of those positions, because really you shouldn't do a budget amendment until you receive the money. And I can go through each one of them if you like, or if you have specific questions on any of them, please ask.
So you're saying that the list that you gave us at the work session, that's all included in these budget amendments except for personnel ones, so it does not include IT, finance, HR.
Right, and in
the pre-K position.
Right, in my cover memo that's in the cash flow area, it does talk about approving those areas in concept. In lieu of the money, we know that we've already been guaranteed by the state that the money is to be, we will receive the money. It's just that technically we haven't received it now. So I don't want to do a budget amendment till we receive the money.
And I know you've had a lot more experience with BEP than a lot of us have, but that money that we get as additional BEP money, that's really to go for needs in the classroom, right? Not necessarily for staffing for the central office.
The BEP is actually a funding formula, but it doesn't designate how you have to spend it. So your ADMs generate your revenue for your teachers in all of your instructional areas and some of your support areas. But it's basically a funding formula, but it's not a budgeting, like it's not specific that it has to go. The only time it's specific is if the state has a initiative to increase salaries, and the increase has to go towards salaries or benefits.
But they don't currently have that for this particular, so
No.
they're not saying that we need to spend extra money on HR, IT, finance.
No, it's totally up to the local board.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Bates.
I did have a few questions. I think you had talked about some of these things during our work session, but
Okay.
Mr. Breeden wasn't available at that time, and he might be able to or provide some additional information about some of these amendments, or maybe I've just forgot.
Okay, no problem.
So amendment number 7028, maintenance and operations, total amount of the amendment's $136,000. Was that just something we just under budgeted when we sent the budget to the commission, or is this some new
Those were
things,
items
or-
that were removed from last year's budget and funded through what we called the keys, one-time purchases. This year, when we kept the budget the same as last year, then we didn't have that money in the budget anymore. It was in the budget prior to last year, but if you remember last year, we moved some things out of the budget because we felt like we could do those as one-time purchases. There were things like a vehicle replacement, which we've done annually. We replace our maintenance vehicles on a 15-year schedule. We've got about 15 or 16 vehicles, so we replace about one a year. Some of that was for tires and tubes for buses, and also some of it was for outsourced HVAC repair. So that's what those things were. Again, last year as we were going through the budget process, we moved them out and funded them through the keys, money taken from fund balance. When we went back and made this year's budget the same as last year's budget, that money isn't there.
I see. And is that, is that similar for budget amendment 7029? It's 670,000. It just says capital maintenance.
No, that is, every year prior to this year, we've taken money out to address capital maintenance needs. HVAC repair, roof repair, whatever we had. And the fact that we've now worked through the bond money to the extent that we're down to, we've got less than $3 million left. About $1 million of that is still earmarked for things at McDowell Elementary. About $1 million's earmarked for an HVAC system at Hampshire. The board hasn't yet made a decision on how to move forward to those. There are other issues that are starting to pop up. We've got a boiler that needs to be replaced at Mount Pleasant High School. We've got a HVAC unit at Spring Hill High School that needs to be replaced. I'm going off the top of my head with these things. We've got some fire alarm systems that are dying at a couple of our schools that are not coming out when they said that, they're in year 2, 3, or 4 on that EMG list, but we don't have any. So normally you've given us anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million out of fund balance each year to start to address those kind of needs. Okay. We just don't have any money for that this year.
You may have already provided this. I guess, have you already provided kind of a breakdown of that 670, the things that we will be?
We actually submitted to the finance office a list of 900,000. 670, okay. I believe, is about all they could come up with.
But so these are probably a lot of things on the EMG list.
They will be not for year one, but for future years.
Okay.
No, there's nothing that's on this list that's year one, but they're broken. So it's not. We can't wait till year 4 because they're on the EMG year 4 list. They need to be fixed now. And when I say broken, they're not dead in the water today, but they're dying a very quick death. Okay. Like a fire alarm. We've got fire alarm system at Mount Pleasant Middle School, fire alarm system at Culleoka, I think it is. I'd have to go back and look. Those two systems are not functioning very well. We know if they go out, we're in trouble. So we're trying to get those fixed.
And you may have explained this last time. Budget amendment 7033, gate communication. It's 24,000.
I can step in and talk about this one. This was for personnel, staff development. It was a ADA, not thinking of the word, adapting for an ADA requirement for someone who needed some sign language. I'm sorry, the words didn't come.
And we're taking that from fund balance for this item as well.
Yeah, we had a budget for that type of thing when it involves students, but we didn't have it for staff.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I actually don't think we have a motion yet on these. Mr. Bates?
I'll make a motion. I would like to vote separately, pull out amendment number 7023. That's the VACO contract. And the 7032, the Skyward training. With the exception of those two amendments that would be pulled, I move to approve the other budget amendments.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Moore. Any further discussion on those? So this would be approving the second set of budget amendments with the exception of 7023, which is the VACO contract, and 7032, which is the Skyward training contract. Seeing no lights, we are ready to vote. Skinzer, it looks like it's not registering your vote. Would you like to tell Ms. Johnson? Your vote's not registering for some reason. Yes, for Ms. Kinzer. So that motion did pass. Do you need some type of action on those other two, or? Okay. Would you like to speak to those two specifically?
I attached, under the cash flow section, some quotes for the training. The empowerment program that we talked about at the work session cannot be booked till February, and I really feel like the items that need to be covered are pretty critical, and we need to move forward as soon as we can. And the other two quotes from Skyward would be for them to be here this week and the first week in December. And I indicated on the training quotes what the focus would be. This week would be a total focus on HR and on setup of employees and role definement within that department. And then the second week would focus on payroll and processing and role defining between HR and payroll, and budget setup, budget requisition approval process, so we can get that squared away. So when someone requests to purchase something, there is a full line of approvals. There is an approval process now, but we're splitting it up. And the budget needs to be budgeted down to a lower level so that the highest level of approval of something being purchased, it'll show whether there's a budget or not, because I'm not comfortable in not knowing. So all of those things are the target focus. And then when the group comes in February, they will go through and do a forensic analysis of our accounting and our HR and how it all works together, and let us know what the holes are, what we need to change, how we need to make it better. And then training will follow if necessary for that. And that's how my plan, that would be my plan to move forward for addressing some of these issues. TCRS issues, just a whole boatload of daily issues that come up with the system.
Mr. Bates?
As far as Skyward, I certainly want to give you the tools that you need, and I understand the predicament you're in coming into a new area, so I want to support that. I guess one of my concerns is I was under the impression and led to believe that VACO was going to come in and have everybody trained, and it was just going to be basically a seamless look. All these people are trained, and here you go. So we would have this trained up department, and it would just go. And that may not be the case, and that concerns me if that's not the case. And I understand if it's not, if you need those tools to maybe try to get it to that point.
I can give you my opinion of coming in and what I see, and I feel like the role of VACO was to come in and stop the hole in the boat and stop the leaking and get you, on a course. However, they're doing that with VACO employees, so you need Murray County employees to carry that on. They also walked into a system that they had never worked on before, and nor had they ever worked in schools, I don't believe, and it's a whole different accounting practice. So I think that their role was to, like I said, stop the leak, and I'm serious that every day we're picking up rocks and people are calling me with issues with their pay and with their TCRS, and I mean, every day we're trying to put out fires. So I think that they fulfilled their role for you, but it wasn't a long-term one.
Okay. Well, I guess, again, I had a completely different impression. And as far as stopping leaks, I got some frustrations there. I mean, I see some major leaks that now we're going to have to cover with fund balance, and I have an issue with that as well. And I'm not, don't take the wrong way. I mean, you're just walking into this, and so I guess I'm just telling you some of my frustrations over the past few weeks. I guess when it comes to using our funds for additional, I guess, finance things, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I kind of feel like I've got to jealously guard that money just because we have so many educational needs in the county and we have such finite resources. And so I'm looking to try to pinch pennies as much as I can so that I can
Sure.
get it in the hands of the students and the teachers. Is there any way, did you think it might be possible that, I know the budget that you're asking to increase is $45,000 for the training. Do you think that maybe we could get by with maybe half of that and then see how that goes as far as the training and then come back to us if maybe that's not enough and maybe we could increase that again?
What I was thinking is that would be a number not to exceed.
Okay.
And what I would do is bring back to you like the quotes that I'm presenting tonight so that you could have an idea of what progress we made and what we have left to do. So right now it would be those two trainings and then the empowerment program to come in, and whatever they would prescribe after that is what I would bring back to you for approval. And I'm hoping it would be within that 45, that we wouldn't even come close to it. But every time we have 3 days of on-site, it's 5,000, so it adds up in a hurry.
Okay, well, forgive me, I've got to ask. see
And
if we can
I
pinch
understand
anywhere we
totally.
can.
And I can tell you that if I can remake this finance office, I believe we will save you money in the long run just in catching errors, so that money won't go out the door and it can go towards instruction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us an understanding and the information you've given. So I appreciate that you're a part of the team.
Thank you.
And I do not want to shoot the messenger. However, I do have to speak to, when I hear an explanation such as VACO was to stop the hole in the boat.
Right.
They have been, and that now we're putting out fires, and when we look under rocks, we're finding things. These are all very reactive statements. Okay, VACO came on board the first week in December last year. That is 11 months ago, almost 12. And I have been, along the way in those 12 months, despite that was supposed to be a short-term relationship, all the way along, I've been told that we are moving into more proactive state of affairs. But yet, really, all we were doing was plugging the hole in the boat for a year. I don't expect you to answer this. You weren't here. But I know what I was told along the way, and all along I've equated this to what in my world is agency nursing, where you pay a lot for the same service at the bedside, but you pay more because you're paying an agency. And that's what we did for a year. These are all reactive words, all reactive descriptions. I was very much under the impression that VACO was turning us to a proactive stance. So again, I appreciate an honest description of what's going on, and I'm not shooting the messenger, but I am calling out that in the last 11 months, I've been very much led to believe that we were rehabbing and fixing and that the leak had stopped. So thank you.
They have been rehabbing and fixing, but you had a lot of leaks. I mean, there are so many things that can go wrong in finance. It's mind-boggling. And I think that, the past employees that were here left, and I think some processes went by the wayside, some definition of roles went by the wayside, just from that lack of continuity and maybe in the way they left or the timing. And so a lot of times things are caught when they're brought to our attention. And from what I can tell, you had this past year a budget process established that you never had before, which is huge. So I think there was a lot of progress, but it is really hard to step into something that was in the condition it was in when you're stepping in. But I wasn't here, so.
And I do appreciate that, but I do want to speak to, we had either by people choosing to leave or by people being asked to leave, we've had a turnover of staff. But along the way, I was told that we were empowering our employees by educating them how to do it differently. So for now, it doesn't really seem, those are just seems to be a bit conflicting from what I was told. Thank you, though.
And it won't, with me here, it won't be fixed in 2 months. There's too much to fix. I mean, I'm fixing as much as I can, and it's a process. So we have to go through the whole cycle of everything that you do in finance. And then when we get to the point of starting that new piece of the cycle, then we'll remodel it and go to the next piece of the cycle. So bear with me with that, because it is a process.
Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Chairman Parker. I'm going to ditto the I'm not shooting the messenger message, but you're in the position. And I'm going to say that I sense that you have this cape on and you're going to come and save the situation. I feel that you are a person of integrity, and what you've showed us this far has been such information that is digestible. I feel like it is real. I feel like it's accurate. It is a big pill for us to swallow at this point, especially when I don't even know what you've been told. But when you make statements like the TCRS situations, that happened under VACO. That wasn't an issue that was a problem prior to them coming. So I don't know what you've been told. I don't know what information has been fed, but I think we can be in agreement across the board, and I think that we are going to work with you that it should be, from this point on, better, because I can attest with Carrie that in all aspects of it, it obviously, from this point, hindsight, didn't get better. And so it is very disheartening to feel like we are being told that something is getting better, and then today, and seeing situations leading up till today, to know that that wasn't all the way accurate. So I'm going to have confidence in the fact that you are going to do the best you can with the resources that you have and the things that you're going to request, that from this point on, we're going to be working diligently to be on our best foot. But integrity is huge for me. Transparency is huge for me. Honesty is huge for me. And I don't think we have come from a place of those 3 words. So I hope we can move in that direction from this point on. That's my expectation personally.
Those are my top 3 items.
Thank you. I guess this is my first meeting since you came on board. My name's Tommy Dudley, and I serve the Spring Hill area. But it's disheartening to hear that after VACO came in, and then I guess one of their first jobs was to stop the bleeding. We found that our finance department was in quite a bit of disarray, and so they came in and were tasked with stopping the bleeding, making corrections, and I thought they were redeveloping our procedures, and then had a training program to coincide with that redevelopment of our procedures that would prevent the continuation of the problems that had been going on. But it sounds like, I have question as to whether those procedures were developed, if they were developed, whether they were the correct procedures for a school system. And I have concerns as to whether there was a training program with our staff to teach them those procedures. Now, the software vendor that we had chosen previously, the decision was made to continue working with them. I thought they had a continued training program Originally, I think we were told that some of our employees had developed the attitude that we know it all and we don't need another training program. Well, you know, evidently that is proven wrong again. And I know you were not here, but I'm hoping that we can definitely decide what kind of training we need, working with our vendors and then working with the programs that you develop. And I'm hoping that we do train those employees. If they're not willing to participate in the training and feel like they can continue doing it the old ways or the way, whatever way they may feel that they personally want to do it. You know, that we may have to make some tough decisions. I know we've had some personnel changes, but, you know, we may have to make some more. But the citizens of this county and the employees of the system put full faith in our financial decisions and actions, you know, and so we've got to get back to where everybody has faith in our finance department, and so I'm hoping you're able to do that, and I want to work with you in any way we can. But this is a matter of urgency, as has been said. We've already been. We've known as a board the seriousness of it for over 11 months. And some of those actions that were done incorrectly go back even further than that. And we know the more time that goes by, the harder it is to get those actions accurate. And then so I want our employees to have full faith. Some of them are truly concerned if their retirements are accurate, and some of them are truly concerned that if they had to show up at the hospital or one of their family members do, as to whether their claims are going to be paid because of not being sure if all the payments have been made and all. And it's hard enough dealing with insurance on a regular basis when everything is correct. I've just got through going through 6 months of arguing with insurance companies, and all my payments were made when they should have been made. But just dealing with insurance companies are tough anyway, and so I hope we can get everything that is under the control of your department or done, and I don't know how far the audits got. I don't know if we were able to determine that we're actually up to date and everything's been checked, but I just want everybody to have full confidence that everything's correct, and then so you know, here in the short term, I would love for you to be able to come back and say, hey, we've whipped this animal, we've got it under control, we've got procedures that are as foolproof as we can get them, and so we're not going to have these problems anymore.
Ms. Gagliano, I did want to ask you, you mentioned that the Skyward training was going to involve a HR first, I think. Did we not have HR training when we converted to Skyward from local government? Because all the people that you have listed there, they're all people that were present when we had Skyward. I mean, when we had the switch over to Skyward, I thought.
I think you probably need to ask our chief of staff, because I wasn't here, but I was told that there was training, so
So what reassurance do I have that the training's going to take the second time if they already had it the first time?
Well, the setup of employees in HR is critical. That's the core of payroll working. So I've already talked to our chief of staff, and she's making her people available during the training. And the focus is for the first 3-day training is totally on HR. Our payroll people are going to sit in on it so that we can work together and coordinate and be aware of what each person's role is in the process as we redefine these processes. But all I can do is provide the training and make the people available. And then, I mean, that's the plan, and the people, like your board member said, if they aren't interested in the training, then other decisions will have to be made. But the train is leaving, and we're on Skyward, and we're going to make it work, and it's going to take everybody, working it through their roles to do it.
We also paid for Skyward training for payroll people that aren't there anymore. So I guess to ask for $45,000 right now when you're saying, I've got a quote, I hope I just won't, I hope I'll go up to that amount or not to exceed that amount. I just, I don't have a good feeling about it. I want you to have the training, but I don't feel like at this point, you've got 3 positions that you still have to fill, it looks like, based on this organizational chart. So who are we going to be training for those 3 positions?
In the cash flow part, I had talked about the board approving in concept going ahead with the personnel issues, and I would start tomorrow posting the positions and moving forward with that.
So we've got additional costs, you think,
no,
over and above what we've already budgeted for those positions?
Yes, that's what was laid out in that spreadsheet. And I do have some of the VACO people that I think are very good, and that I would encourage them to apply. And so some of them have many months of history that I wouldn't have to start over again. They already know how to use Skyward, and that's how we can get up and running. So.
I will just say for VACO, I think you saw the reaction from the entire board at the work session, and really I think kind of how disgusted we all are with how much has been paid to VACO. And I understand that you feel like they plugged some leaks, but we've dealt with this for over 11 months, and believe me, the calls and the emails that we got didn't indicate that things got plugged. It indicated that the problems just blew up on us, and it was a nightmare. So to know that we're paying $720,000 to them is a really tough pill to swallow, especially when they're clearly, well, I know that this is $360,000, but we had another budget amendment that we had snuck in on us at the end of the year that I believe Mr. Parliament said was also about $360,000. So collectively, we have spent $720,000 with them, and that just doesn't seem right.
But anytime you go with a contracted service, it's going to be more expensive than an employee.
Agreed.
So,
but some of us were screaming for months that we needed to hire somebody for your position, and that wasn't done. So now we find ourselves with a bill that we're essentially on the hook for as a board and as a county.
I did look back in your financial reports, and on your monthly reports there was a note with a running total of what was being spent on VACO. So you had that amount every month that was presented in the financial report. So, I mean, I don't know.
I will tell you that Mr. Parliament did not highlight that every month, and I think we could probably go back and look at the meetings, and we could clearly see that Mr. Parliament was not very transparent with us, in my opinion, as to what we were spending with him. And when you fire entire payroll departments and you bring in your own people, that's also how you generate $720,000 worth of income for your company. And in my husband's business, they call that churning, and people go to jail for that. So I feel like we were in a situation, it was bad, but I don't necessarily feel like VACO has made things better. And so I really am going to have a hard time authorizing any additional money to go to them. Mr. Moore.
Can I make a motion to approve Budget Amendment 7032? That's the Skyward one, in case anybody doesn't want to look at it.
Do you have something else to say about it, Mr. Moore? Okay. Seeing no other, Ms. Powers?
Well, it's not directly to your motion, but I do want to just speak to, we have a strategic plan. One of the things that we talked about as we made the strategic plan is the value of transparency. I just need to be sure that we're all keeping that in mind at every turn, at every topic.
All right, seeing no further lights, we're ready to vote. And this is on the Skyward budget amendment. All right, that motion did pass.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Motion to approve Budget Amendment 7023, the VACO.
All right. We have a motion and a second from Mr. Pennings. Do we have any further discussion on that? We have a motion to approve the VACO contract budget amendment for $360,000. Mr. Pennings. Did you, were you, Mr. Bates? I'll let you go first.
I just, in good conscience, can't support this motion. I don't even know how this even happens. State law is very clear that before there could be any expenditure of money, we have to approve that. There has to be a budget for it. So I can't fathom how a company that is coming in to watch over our finances is spending money without a budget. And so we went over this at the work session. I think the state law is very clear. Went over the statute, TCA 49-2-301B1W. Makes it very clear. Any change in expenditure of money is provided in the budget shall first be ratified by the local board, the appropriate local legislative body. Here we've had an expenditure of money of $360,000. There has never been a ratification first by this board or the appropriate local legislative body. So here we've apparently VACO has incurred this bill, ran up this bill, and I couldn't have supported their expenditure even if they came to us before they spent it. But this kind of double compounds it that they've run up this bill and now are submitting it to us without a budget. This amount is crazy. There's no way I could have supported that then or now. I've got a lot of concerns because this money is taken away from the needs of our students and our teachers. And at the end of the day, I'm astounded. What in the world are we hiring a bean counter for? The whole purpose of having a bean counter on your staff is to watch the beans, okay? And somehow there's a $360,000 pot of beans that is been spent, and nobody was watching that. And I don't know how a contractor or whatever, the chief financial officer, I believe, has a fiduciary duty to watch the books and to make sure we're staying within our budget. And I think other employees of our system also have those duties. And so I'm not sure how this ever got to this point. And again, going back to, well, what are we paying for? That not only is somehow this money being expended without the board ever approving it, but we've had other issues, you know, talking about plugging holes. Somehow we approve a budget that goes to the county commission that's under budgeted by well over $1 million. And again, that fallbacks on the board ultimately because we submitted it to the commission, but we have paid staff that should have said, whoa, guys, hold up, we need to back up. Before you all go over to the county commission, you need to realize you are presenting a budget that is from day one under budgeted. You are not asking for funding just to cover your current leads. But that did not happen, so that's another issue. My vote, I guess, pretty clear is going to be vote no on this. What my preference would be, first of all, would be to have our attorney take a look at this to see what our if there's any way that we've got some things to explore, whether this fee can be negotiated, whether we're going to have to pay this full amount or not. I'd be interested in that. And then also, if whatever it ends up being, I think if staff is falling down on the job and was not watching these budgets, and now we're getting this big of a hit, staff is going to have to go back and they're going to have to find the savings somewhere. There's going to be cuts to other budgets. It's going to have to be made, but I'm personally, I'm not going to be, I might work with that. I might be willing to be reasonable and take some from fund balance to make this whole, but I'm looking for some due diligence to find some cuts elsewhere as well.
If I could just add something to that, without VACO in place over these months, you wouldn't have had people paid because you don't have any payroll people. You wouldn't had people doing budget amendments, doing your budget, paying the bills. Nobody could buy anything.
Look, I understand that, but I would have liked to. And this is a $360,000 bill since July 1. I would have liked to, at some point, to be brought to the board's attention that, hey, we're going to stay on, but you don't have money set aside. You don't have money budgeted for this. I just want to give you a heads up on that. And before we go down that path, we're going to have to budget it somehow. Otherwise, we've got an issue, and that could have been brought to the board's attention. It could have been dealt with at that time, not now.
Right.
So that's my, I guess, concern.
Sounds like your budget had a lot of holes in it from your previous financial person not budgeting for a whole month of payroll. All of those issues. I mean, your budget had a lot of holes in it from a previous employee.
Well, I'll tell you what my understanding was. My understanding was VACO was going to come in and deal with the payroll issue that was not the board's. That's a whole nother subject of how this payroll fiasco happened. So we end up bringing an independent contractor to come in to fix that problem. My understanding was they were going to stay on just long enough to get us through the budget season and then hand over to somebody else. So I don't know why that did not occur. I'm not sure why VACO stayed since July 1 that long. And are they still on the rolls right now? Are we still paying VACO employees?
You don't have any payroll people. So, I mean, that's what I've got to hire, and there's the benefits reconciliation person has to be hired. And like I said, some of those VACO people, I would like to offer, have them apply for the position because they've found a lot of money that was going out the door for you. They have paid for themselves in many ways. I don't know if it would make you feel better to have an itemization of this bill that would show how many people worked for how many hours for how many months or weeks, if it would make you feel better, but it's a lot of manpower for this big bill.
And I guess, yeah, I mean, I would like that. Additional information is always good. I guess I would also like to know, my understanding is this 360,000 is above what was normally budgeted for the finance office.
Well,
or am I misunderstanding that? Is
It
because
wouldn't have, it's a contracted service, so it wouldn't have been budgeted. Because you had the people to do it. So you've had these people positions budgeted that aren't being used.
right, and so I'd like to know that. I mean, if that's the
And that's in that
case,
spreadsheet I gave you.
okay. Well, I'd like to know if we budgeted for employees of a certain amount, but
Right.
yet, okay, we didn't have employees, we had to bring in a contractor, and so we had to pay a contractor instead of employees. What was the net difference? The difference between what we were already gonna pay employees, but we ended up paying the contractor? What's the net above?
Well, I gave you, in the spreadsheet, there's a itemization of positions and what was in the budget for them, and then what would be needed for the rest of the year. And so if you looked at that, and then you looked at the VACO bill.
And so what's the bottom line? What is that we already had budgeted, and then we end up having to
From
spend
memory,
more?
I'm saying you had like 530,000 in employee cost budgeted, something around that, if I remember, I don't know if I remember the final column or the first column, but,
And that would be helpful, but the thing that's, I guess, confusing me is my understanding of this budget amendment is taking it out of fund balance.
for this contracted service bill, and then I'm looking at what we have budgeted for the positions versus what we would need to hire the positions for the rest of the year and adjust their salaries. So I
guess what
kind of
would
looked
be
at
easier
it
for
in
me
two
to see-
places.
Right, I guess what would be easier for me to see is if, okay, I've already got a budget line for employees, I'm having to move that to contracted services, that would be just a transfer rather than to take it out of fund balance. But when I see the
No.
360 being taken out of fund balance, in my feeble mind, I'm understanding this is no, that's after we've already used the money that we already had budgeted for employees, and this is above and beyond that. But if that's not the case, I'd love to have some clarification on that, because that's a much different situation.
Well, right now, they're two separate pots, and like I said, we have money, like, for example, for my position, you had a budget for that position, and it's not been used since the person left, so it's sitting there, but then we needed to adjust it, so we had to add to it. So I'm using what you hadn't spent to fulfill the whole contract for me for the end of the year, through the end of the year. So that's why I'm thinking of it as two separate pots, because the contracted service was never budgeted in the financial area or in HR or wherever we're using it.
All right, so.
The two kind of offset each other, but I don't really think you should mix them together.
All right, let's run this scenario. Maybe you can help me understand. All right, so I think I understand what you're saying is that the extra money that we had in the existing budgets for personnel is what you're going to be looking at in order to cover
The rest of the year.
current salaries throughout the rest of the year. And you think that'd be a match?
Mhm.
It won't be a little bit more or a little bit less. It'll be pretty well balanced.
I'm not sure I understand the question. The way I presented it is, here's what you budgeted, here's what I'm recommending you adjust it to. That makes an annual salary of X, but we've already expended part of the year, so all we need for the rest of the year is this amount, counting the stuff you already had budgeted.
All right, after all that swapping around, will we still need to take $360,000 out of fund balance?
Yeah, because it's two separate things. The 360 has already occurred. You've already paid, it's already a service that's been rendered.
And there's no way that we can transfer that from existing budgets? There's not enough money in those existing budgets to cover that 360?
No.
Okay. Because again, as I go through it, and I'll be happy to look at the spreadsheets, I'm still seeing a extra 360, not a moving around 360, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but I'll be happy to take a look at the spreadsheets to see if I'm maybe grasp it better. Thank you.
I apologize if this is not a fair analogy, but I can equate a lot of positions in Murray County Public Schools to our company. And you spoke to the job of we have a bean counter to count the beans. CFO has a role. However, equating it to our company, that CFO is under our CEO. And when I look at this organizational chart, this position is very clearly above the CFO. So while we're trying to hash out and understand what happened, at the end of the day, our CEO, who we call superintendent, is responsible for this. And you've said that, oh, it was in our financial report. Oh, my word. Like, things do need to be highlighted to us, and often are. But we're, I think, all saying on the backside that we're getting a $360,000 bill that we did not see coming. And at the end of the day, I think that's why we have a CEO or superintendent over this process. So we're given a lot of focus trying to understand, and it's all focused on the CFO. But this organization, we have a structure, with the CEO that is responsible for this.
Thank you. Did we have a signed agreement with VACO showing exactly what services they were to render during their time of doing our books, and what type training they were to provide, and what type procedures they were to develop?
Yes, we had those. Those were all vetted by Jake and signed with his approval.
Okay, have they fulfilled that contract? I mean, it sounds like they were here drawing checks and then billing us for services, but did what we pay for fulfill? Was it in fulfillment of the contract?
To my knowledge, yes. And a conversation that Ms. Gagliano and I had probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks after she started VACO's done a good job getting us to this point, and now I can pick up the ball from here and run with it. But had you not had them, you would be in a worse spot than you are now. So she said they've done a good job getting you to this point.
And I understand somebody had to jump in and try and fulfill those duties, but it sounds like we were told that procedures was going to be developed and that the employees would be trained to it, and there would be no way this could happen again. Well, it sounds like that's not an accurate statement. So I want to get this fiasco behind us. I want the books correct and accurate, and I want us to be able to depend on our budget. We shouldn't have to go to fund balance to pay for this. I knew there was going to be some additional expense for having them on board, but I didn't realize it was going to be near this expense, and maybe it's our fault for not demanding to know on a month-to-month basis where we stood with this contract and what we were going to, what amount of expense we were accumulating. But I just want to get it behind us.
I just will say, I think this goes back to asking for forgiveness and asking for permission. And we've been asked for forgiveness in this instance and not for permission, in my opinion. And I would actually be very curious to see, because I think there was a lot promised from VACO, including policies and procedures, which I've never seen, because we deal with policies every month, and they told us they weren't going to look at the financial policies, and they didn't do that. They were looking at the procedures. Procedurally, there were a lot of things that fell through the cracks, and that's clear. So I would be curious to see how well they did when we do get this audit, because when Mr. Parliament was here 2 weeks ago, he basically told us that we were going to have issues with our audit in the future. And you know, when you pay $720,000, you just kind of feel like you should get some value there, and that some of these things should be cleared up, and they weren't. And so I would kind of like to see us wait to see how that audit turns out before we cut them a check. I'm not saying that the two are the same, but I don't know that they've fulfilled everything that we asked them to do in our contract. But I'm not in the mood for forgiveness at this point. Mr. Pennings.
I agree with a lot was being said. I'd like a legal opinion for Mr. Williver to look at the contract and see if we are legally obligated to pay this. I mean, yes, we're not happy with the service we got, probably not happy with the final results. But if we're legally obligated to pay the bill, let's pay it, move on, and learn from it. Expensive lesson, I agree, but let's learn from it.
I keep hearing the phrase, "we were told," and it's been followed by procedures would be made or ours would be cleaned up. We were told employees would be trained. We were told they will be here about 3 months or through budget season. Okay, I just have to call out that what was said and what we were told is different is different than what was delivered. And I see that as such a common thread and theme. I just need to speak to it.
Can I say one thing? Sure. I just want to make it known that until I can get these positions hired, someone has to do these functions, and it's VACO right now. So without them, my hands are completely tied, because you'll start getting the phone calls again if we don't have someone doing payroll or someone, you know, handling the mainstream accounting.
Why are these positions not posted? Because you're saying that this is coming out of a different account. This is from, I mean, at least based on the conversation that I heard that you had with Mr. Bates, this 360 is coming out of fund balance. Has nothing to do with the positions that need to be posted. I have no idea why those positions haven't been posted yet.
They're not posted because my spreadsheet has a recommendation for adjusting the salary so we can attract people. And so I didn't want to post them until there was approval from the board to adjust those positions. Because I'm going to change what they do, I'm going to change what their titles are, I'm going to change up everything. And I want to be able to get people in that can do the job, or we're just spinning our wheels again. And so I was trying to bring it to you to say, here's my plan, and this is what I need to do it. And until they can be hired on, everything has to still be done every day. There has to be someone sitting in that seat.
Well, we have a work session scheduled for next week, so I personally would really like to see us go through that with you next week. I don't know why we didn't talk about it 2 weeks ago, in all honesty, if that was the plan, that we needed to get these positions posted tonight. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of the conversation that we're having, we could have had 2 weeks ago. And we're getting stuck on something with VACO that has nothing to do with what you need to do. And I think you see that the board wants to give you the help that you need, but we're talking about two totally different things here. And I think that we want to get those positions posted, but quite frankly, I would like to see those roles and responsibilities. And we got an organizational chart hand-delivered to us tonight with job descriptions and salaries really for the first time, I think, in the 3 years that I've been on the board. With all of that information. We need that information for the positions that you want to post and go forward. And if we need to have a specially called meeting so you can get those posted on the day after the work session, then we can do that. But
Okay.
we need to, I think I think you're trying to put it all together with an addition in HR, an addition in IT, and an additional salaries in finance. And I'm just not comfortable with that all not being broken out and very transparently laid out for us. Because what I'm looking at from what you gave us at the work session said, I think 111,000 for those 3 personnel positions. That was additional money that was needed.
Right, but if you look at what was posted after the work session, there's a spreadsheet that has all of the positions with their salaries and with the adjustment and the new money, and it's less than the 111.
Well, I'm just saying, I think for us to really be able as a board to go through this, we needed that information at our work session. I mean, I understand that you may not have had it, but we're going to have a work session next week, so I would just prefer that we talk about that information a week from tomorrow and go forward at that point. I'm not comfortable with what we've discussed thus far, just opening up the checkbook again. I think we do have a motion, though, and a second to vote on the VACO amendment. And this would be to approve the $360,000 coming out of fund balance. Seeing no lights, I believe we're ready to vote. And you got Mr. Dudley's vote? All right. So that motion did fail.
So what I'll do is I'll get the VACO contract to Mr. Wolliver, and we'll be back for, by the work session, if I get it to you tonight?
Explain to me what you're looking for there. What that was is a consultant contract. It basically said you'll pay for what.
I'll answer that question. It's probably not going to be able to deliver, but I think what most people up here are expecting would be able to see the things that we talked about in the meetings back in December, January, and February of last year that the VACO said they were delivered to us, and the timeline they said would deliver, and that I think we feel like has not been delivered. I think that's what I'm seeing up here. Now, that said, I don't recall what was in the contract, and from what you're describing of it, that's not going to cover what we're talking about. But I think that's what most people here are looking for.
Just a contract analysis is not going to get you that. I mean, if you're looking for what was promised versus what was delivered, then that would be me coordinating.
I understand it's subjective, but I would think that I would like our superintendent or whoever else needs to be involved to look at that. Because there were some things we were that were just specifically talked about, and if I have to go sit through hours of meetings, which I really don't want to do and recall what we did, but I specifically remember us talking about certain things such as delivering procedures, putting people in place, revamping the entire department, and there were timelines that were given for that of when he could have that done. And again, we're sitting here almost a year later, and from what I'm being told, none of that has taken place, and we don't have any staff. And to go with that, to go back to what Mr. Bates had brought up, I am still confused about this process. If we don't have anybody in the staff that's on our staff, what happened to the money that was applied to that to this for the time that we weren't paying paychecks? That's got to go somewhere. I understand it's 2 buckets of money, but I think if I want to put it in layman's terms, we're talking about a checking account and a savings account here. So it must be still in the checking account if you're asking us to take it out of the savings account. I would just like to know and maybe that's a long discussion we could have at the next work session. You don't have to answer that right now.
I'll bring it back to you.
Thank you.
More details.
So I would really like some very layman's terms, detailed information on that of where that money is. And I understand you're saying some of it's going to be offset, but I'm doing some quick math in my head, and I don't see how that's offsetting a half a year's worth of nobody in the entire department.
We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break, if that's all right with everyone. Oh, sorry.
So the analysis that you're looking for, I don't think I'll have that for you next week. Can you speak to finance about that part of it?
No.
I understand that may be more than you can get before next week. My expectation would be for you guys to get to us whatever you can for us to start the discussion next week. And I don't expect it to be completed next week as far as our board having some discussions on that. That's my expectation.
Before you take a break, can I just finish the cash flow, or is that, you want to go on to that after?
Can we go on to that after?
Sure.
I had a request. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get back to order. I think the next item is the food service budget amendment. Did you want to speak to that or just to the cash flow? Okay. Are there any questions regarding the food service budget? I think we had a chance to see that during the work session. Do we have a motion to approve that? Motion by Ms. Kinzer, second by Mr. Atkinson. Seeing no lights, I believe we're ready to vote. All right, that motion did pass. Move on to the cash flow.
Okay, included in your packet was the revenue and expenditure summary for October, and some notes off to the side on the revenue and expenditure. On the revenue, it was just noting that that particular line item is sort of inflated from a grant. And then under the expenditure, it was the VACO expense year-to-date. The next page had some highlights from both revenue and expenditures, just kind of giving you the trends. And then we had an updated cash flow statement, and the good news was, if you remember, our previous cash flow statement had our estimate for October, and October's actuals came in, and they came in much higher. So that, together with a few changes in that unbudgeted expenditure line item, reflects back in that last page of your fund balance position. And with the 3% that the state requires, you're up to about 5.88. So that's a positive move from just a couple weeks ago. Hopefully the revenue will continue to trend in that direction. And we're 4 months into the fiscal year, about 33% of the way. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Atkinson?
The balance as of 6/30/18, you showing a 5.88% increase. Is that what you're saying? Or saying that's what we'll have left over?
That percentage represents your fund balance in comparison to your operating expenditures, and what you want to try to have is between 8 to 10%, and that's what we'd be working towards. And you're already at 5.88, so that's good.
That's projected 5.88.
That's projected at this point in time, and remember, this is a moving number. Every month it'll change.
Right, but that's with a VACO payment, right?
That's with it taken out, yes.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, just one more. How much of an increase was that in October?
How much of an increase? What?
You had a projected increase in October, and you said it was much higher. How much more was it?
Yeah, we had, let's see. The potential revenue line item increasing in our little model went from 3.875 million to 5.225 million. And that was basically reflected in that cash flow. The very first one I gave you had highlighted October as preliminary, and it showed cash receipts at 7.1 million. And this latest one was the October actual, and it showed it at 8.5 million, the cash receipts. So there was the difference.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seeing no other lights, I think we're all good. Thank you. Next item is the Keys to College and Career Readiness Round 2. That's a request for $590,000, I believe. Does anyone want to speak to that? Does anyone want to speak to the request?
Are you needing a motion?
Or really kind of an explanation, I think, on what exactly is included in that 590.
So included in the 590 is $300,000 to continue working with Diploma to fund more devices, and also $290,000 for Catapult to continue at Cox Middle School.
Mr. Atkinson? Ms. Bowers?
I'm just curious, where are we with the materials for K2?
The materials for K2 were pulled to recommend to add to the budget for next year.
For next year?
Yes.
So what are they doing this year?
Using the materials and resources they currently have.
Okay, well, I think since the start of school last year, the 2016-17 year, I would think I have consistently said that teachers keep verbalizing that they don't have materials. So now we're in 17-18, and those same teachers are saying the same thing. So I just kind of need an explanation on that. It's been a very consistent voice that K through 2 is lacking materials.
and would have loved to fund it had we had enough money in fund balance to get us to that point. However, we don't, and so that was pulled to add to the budget for next year.
How many kids do we have K through 2?
Dr. Woodard.
Not here.
Okay. Dr. Woodard, could you put up enrollment and see how many students we have K through 2 right now? Okay, thank you.
Oh, your microphone? Did you wanna?
While Dr. Woodard is pulling that up, I will just say that the 300,000 for diploma, that's for 3 through 12, right? So
Mr. Carver, correct? Yes.
So K through 2 will continue to not have resources and continue to not have devices. Please.
I was coached this morning that I need to be at a mic so that I'm on the record, so that's why I came up and stuff. So as it stands right now, the amount that has been asked for is considerably less than what the original amount was. And yes, Ms. Parker, it would be to fund with the 312. And then what we've been doing is as devices go into 312, we're retasking them to the lower levels. And then also too, for the kindergarten kids, if you remember, the board said about the kindergarten assessments, we're using iPads with those. So it's not like the elementary kids aren't getting any of the devices, as we're either retasking or we're using other funding streams to get them. Mm-hmm. So I guess the short answer is the allocation that you would be authorizing tonight, I think I shared with some of you before, part of that money would be to get devices and have them deployed for the online testing at Spring Hill High School and Central High School. And tonight I've been told by the Department of Ed that we could use iPads and such. I'm waiting to get that in writing. If not iPads, it'd be another device. And then you back those out, and then the other devices, we would continue with the diploma process and stuff. And we do have grade levels classes that have gone ahead and staff members that have gone ahead and become diploma certified. They're just waiting for the devices. And everybody in the district understands the funding piece of it. So they realize it may be a way off, but they still want to get in line.
Understood.
Okay? Now,
I would kind of like K2 to get in line too, so that's
well,
one of the concerns that I have.
And again, it's not to say that, with that authorization, it's not to say that K2 isn't getting devices. I mean, we are, again, finding additional funding streams. The title folks, I have been approving technology for the title schools. The part that gets to be kind of,
I'm just gonna stop you right there because I understand what you're saying as far as title schools, but I'm gonna go back to what our mission says, and it says we will provide the educational instruction, tools, and environment for every child, not 3 through 12,
right.
Not 3 through 12.
Right.
So if we're not providing resources for kids, for teachers in K through 2, I've said it all along, but I don't see how the switch just gets switched on, and then all of a sudden we're going to be able to raise our scores 20%, which I think was what the academic plan showed.
Yeah.
So my question is, when we know that tools aren't being provided, we know that teachers are saying they don't have the resources that they need. And it's not just in K2, and I hate that because we got a report on textbooks in general, and we know that teachers don't have textbooks. We know that we're paying for Mine and Dreambox, and we know that teachers have 5 computers, 5 Chromebooks that have been passed down to them to use in their classroom at a station. And this is just not the learning that I envision for all of our children, and that's disconcerting because we're okay with spending $720,000 on VACO, and
No comment on that.
understand.
But I guess the point that I would tell you is, as you know, and I've shared with the board, I'm actively trying to identify some other funding mechanisms so that we can provide every child with a device.
You know, when you have a $97 million budget, I just don't really know that all these things shouldn't be taken care of.
And
that's the problem that we have. A lot of this stuff is getting pulled from fund balance, and that's been kind of our cushion. And I mean, I'm looking at these fund balance numbers, and with the 2 schools that we've essentially approved tonight, I'm wondering how we're going to open the doors, especially if the county commission doesn't give us money.
Right, and again, one of the things as we go forward is that we need to find, and I've mentioned this to the board before, we need to identify a perpetual funding stream that is insulated from being pulled from other aspects. Again, my experience has been to have a pot of money that is supported by tax dollars or an allocation within the district that cannot be pulled for salaries, that can't be pulled for textbooks. It is dedicated towards that. Much the same way that, and I haven't been a part of your budget process here, so you know, there is always. It's been my experience that there is a textbook fund that is allocated so many dollars that you figure on a 5 to 7 year recycling of text, but that money is not to be moved from one pot to another pot to adjust your bottom line.
Right.
There should not be, if you've successfully done the budgeting process, there shouldn't be any, you guys call them budget amendments, we call them fund transfers. You know, that shouldn't be happening. So from my chair, from my wheelhouse, from where I'm at, again, trying to find alternative funding streams, trying to leverage every dollar that you guys graciously make available, and that the end goal is all kids, and that you know, right now we're trying to work through the process. Now, I mentioned iPads when I was talking a second ago, and I mean, we're looking at the devices. The district approved devices, the Lenovo laptop, which is a very good product. I guess Dr. Potts isn't here right now, but you know, one of the scenarios with this allocation would be to provide iPads, 200 iPads for Central and for Spring Hill to take the state testing on, right? And next Wednesday, Dr. Potts and I and a team and several kids are going to be going over to Germantown in Memphis because they're a one-to-one with iPads, and we're going to try and get into their new high school that they're building over there as well, just to see what that looks like and stuff. So, I mean, I understand the position of the board. I understand the finances. And as I've said before, every dollar that you allocate to me, I will leverage to the best of my ability, as well as any other resources that are made available. I will go on record as saying I don't support grant money because it's one-time money, and then we're right back where we started from. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And we're going to create a perpetual funding stream that is insulated either through tax dollars or within the regular budget that has the elasticity to grow as our enrollment grows and will not be pulled, at least not on my watch, it's not going to be pulled to go into something else. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I don't have enough money to give K2 devices.
I know you don't. And I'm not expecting that you have enough money to give K2 devices, but I'm just saying that as a board, we said that we're going to give every student the tools. And so if we know that there is a gap for those kids and we continue to fund other grades, I just don't understand how we can in good conscience as a board say that we are following our mission.
Right. And I think, I guess, vision as opposed to mission. When I guess the way I get it straight in my mind is the vision is that every child have a device. That's the vision. And we have to work towards that vision because Karen was up here earlier. We got to know what our resources are. And and the thing of it is, it's like terrible analogy, but if you wait to build a house sometimes till you got money in the bank, sometimes you never get to that point. Sometimes you just have to jump in and start moving in that direction. The analogy, it equates to using digital tools for learning. We've got to, in this district, establish a lab school, if you will, or practice. I met with the teacher librarians last Friday. I spent half a day with them, and along with the tech coaches. Those folks could be the change agents throughout the district because they're already connected and they can share best practices and stuff. But we got to be trying the best practices. And so my word to the board is, with this allocation, that gets more tools in the hands of kids so we can figure out what works and what doesn't work. And so I know a little bit later there's a question about, help me out, Dr. Woodard, Power School. And, there was we're going to not take any action or anything like that or make a recommendation because we want to meet with the Power School people so that we've got it in our mind, what is it we're going to need. So if I'm bringing it to you, it's something that I believe that you're going to need, okay?
And I'm not saying that I think that you're not going to spend the money wisely.
I know.
I'm just saying that we as a board have to figure out priorities.
I get that.
And
I
would like to give something to everyone.
I know.
And I'm just very frustrated that it's very easy for us to just say, oh, well, we're not going to do that. And I don't know where the change happened in our system. That I know that we've gone away from having elementary, middle, and high school supervisors, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's just fallen through the cracks. And I don't know if principals feel like they're supposed to be asking for textbooks or they're supposed to be asking for devices, or I just think there's a lot of real confusion in our system. And we need to give some clarity, and providing finances is one thing, but making sure that everybody is in their classroom and has resources to learn is pretty vital to what we have to do. It's not a want, it's a have to.
It's mission critical to what we want to try to accomplish. And again, I can only speak from my wheelhouse and what my responsibilities are at this present time. And I will tell you that a digital device in the hands of a kid connected to the internet opens it has an impact on what physical plants look like. It has an impact. Dan Lawson, superintendent of schools at Tullahoma, he was up last week. He's an old friend of mine. Their district has pretty much gone open source on things. But then you got to have the teachers look at that to see this is a good they get to do the vetting, The same would be true with a textbook. The teachers need to do the vetting so that because the teachers know the kids best, so they'll understand, what strategies, what tools we're going to need to better serve those kids. But again, from my wheelhouse, where I'm at, I guess the thing that I would tell you is the more digital devices we can get in the hands of kids, the better we can determine what the strategies are, and then we're going to teach our own, like with the teacher librarians. We're not going to bring in consultants. We're going to develop leadership capacity within the organization. But then again, we have to, the seed money or salt in the mind or whatever. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I do understand the financial position, and I do understand the priority piece. So as I've said before, you just allocate what you can allocate to me, and I'll make it go. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Atkinson?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Can we wait till I get my answer, please?
We'll wait to vote before then. We
Thanks.
can still have discussion after the motion, if we have a second.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have the number, Dr. Woodard?
Could you please use the microphone so it can be on record, please?
Students, 909 second grade students for a total of 2,577 students K through 2.
What was that total again? So there's been a consistent need voiced since the beginning of the 2016-17 school year that K through 2 teachers don't feel like they have resources. And we don't have money for that, but how many kids go to Cox? Can I just ask for the rationale why we're choosing to meet those needs over? I'm sorry, were you still speaking? I didn't hear you. Can someone just help me understand the rationale?
Sure. So going back to the discussions that we had during the springtime, at Cox Middle School, the Catapult program, we have many students that are over age and undercredited. We have students that are 16 years old, 15 years old, and they're in the 8th grade. So if we don't provide a resource for them, those kids are going to be back in the gen ed classroom. And as you know, going back to what happened during the 15-16 year, we had some issues and some situations at Cox Middle School that disrupted the educational environment for all students at Cox. And so Catapult was brought in as a resource, as an assistance for them. Based on the board's recommendation that we can do one more year of Catapult if you look at providing those resources in-house. I've already had a conversation with Dave Wood, the CEO of the company, and he and I are sitting down and we're talking about a plan over the summer to train our own people in order for Catapult as a resource not to be here, but the services with our own staff providing it starting in the 18-19 school year.
Well, I'm not an educator, as you know, but I have really repeatedly heard that the goals of the Keys to College and Career Readiness are things like have all kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade and have all kids doing math on grade level by 4th grade. And it just seems to me that materials are important that, you know, I hate that we've kind of got these kids in middle school that are having such problems, but I don't think that our curriculum was up to par, and I think those kids aren't on grade level, and I think now we're kind of being very reactive to that with Catapult and with our middle schools across the county. So I just have to say that it seems to me we need to be giving the teachers the materials they need in K through 2 so that kids, when they get to 3rd grade, will be reading on grade level, and when they get to 4th grade, they will be doing math on grade level.
Yes, and I'm not going to disagree with the Catapult is a reactive program, because it is. For a child to be 15 years old and be in the 8th grade and not have to, you know, a child in 15 should be a sophomore in high school, and they're still stuck in middle school. They've had problems throughout their elementary and their middle school careers that's prevented them from being pushed on. So it is reactive in nature, because those kids have to get the tools that they need, or they're classified as dropouts. That negatively dings the system, and then we're automatically classified as a system in need of improvement when we have so many dropouts. So we are trying to get to a point to where we can be more proactive with these students rather than reactive. Because if you'll remember, Catapult not only helps out the rest of the school with instruction, because those students that are over age and undercredited are no longer in that program. They're in their own program growing on their own. And students move in and out as needed from the Catapult program. We're trying to get caught up, and we're trying to provide more opportunities for students to meet the keys every single day. But the keys, it's going to take time for us to get to that point. It's the long game. The keys have only been in place for a year and a half. So we're working every single day in order to fulfill the mission and vision that Chair Parker just pulled out, in order for our students to get there. But it's going to take some time.
Right. Well, again, the phrase of we have been told, we have been told. I feel like we have been told a lot of things. I also feel like we have been told that we need all these programs and software and this and that. I have been told by teachers consistently, in grades K through 2 since the beginning of the 16-17 school year that we need materials. And I think we should be listening to them.
And going back to what we talked about at the work session, if the board chooses to fund that, we can. And if the board wants to pull that out of fund balance, we can. If you want us to look at cost savings for the rest of the year, we can. But based on the financial position that we're at now, I could not recommend funding it at this time. But if the board wants to go opposite my recommendation, you can do that. I would love to fund everything on the Keys list. I would love to, because I think when McDowell came to us and when Spring Hill came to us, they brought real needs that they have in their schools in order for kids to meet the 7 keys of college and career readiness. We just don't have enough money. We just don't have the funds available in order to do that for everybody at this time. But it doesn't mean that we'll be able to do it eventually. It doesn't mean that we won't get to that point. But right now where we're sitting, we just don't have enough money to do it.
Well, I keep hearing the phrase that, we're going to have to choose priorities. So it appears to me that you have chosen the priority of Catapult over which serves 761 students, over the 2,577 K through 2 students. And I just need help understanding the rationale on choosing that priority.
As a superintendent, I've got to look at the priorities of the entire district. And my recommendation was, and still is, for this board to approve us to continue moving forward with diploma, to continue us move down the digital pathway, and to continue our partnership with Catapult for at least one more year. That was my recommendation.
Any other discussion on this? I will just ask, what exactly is the purpose of the principal attestation?
We just left that on there. Let's say, for example, that the board did want to go a little bit deeper with spending more fund balance. Maybe there was a specific school that the board wanted to pull out. The principal attestations are on there just in case. The board did want to make a change in that.
I would assume that that's expected of all of our principals regardless. I don't need a digital printout that says that they attest that they're going to value the college and career readiness.
I'm sorry, yeah. That was a request from the board to do that. And so we just wanted to show the board that we did it.
When did the board request that?
Was that the October work session? Yeah.
Mr. Bates.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just get some clarification real quick. I'm trying to get caught up on things. So the first spreadsheet that we're looking at that has the pink, have all those things in pink, have they already been funded or no?
No, the ones, if you scroll over to the left, the ones in yellow are the ones that have already been funded.
Okay. And so what your recommendation is for funding tonight is the diploma, 300,000, and the catapult, 290, and that's the motion that's on the floor right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these other key requests that the schools made, I know that we had some discussion about, I know we went ahead and funded the RTI positions that were requested, but some of the schools, they were given the option that, hey, we feel like some other needs are more priorities. We feel like we could get more bang for our buck. And they did some individual budgets like, like Central High School, Keys 5 through 7, there's a $31,450. Is that, so that's still not funded?
No, sir.
And that's one of the things that they made that kind of they called an option.
Yes.
They thought that, okay, instead of asking for the 38,000 for the RTI position, we'll ask for this.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I really struggle with this, and I think the predicament that we're in is we're having to struggle between competing needs. Mm-hmm. These are, and saying no to some needs, and you're saying these are the priorities that you've assessed.
Yes.
As far as these other needs that the other schools have requested. And I guess I do struggle with Catapult as well. But and maybe my impressions are wrong, but my impressions are that Cox has really made a big turnaround. I know that the commission was, well, as far as the disciplinary situation, I know that the commission, we were in the paper where they were looking at the school resource reports, and my impression is that that's improved. And I guess in theory, if that has improved, hopefully the academics will follow.
Yes.
And so I guess I do realize that it's a high cost, but it would seem like, I guess I don't want to, if they've made this much improvement, I don't want to go back now. I don't want to take that risk. And I know that these other needs, it's very bothersome for me.
Well, like for example, I'll point out one student that was in a half a year of Catapult the first year that they were here, last year for the 16-17 year. He was one of those 16-year-old eighth graders. By December, they were able to get him caught up with credit. He was able to go to Spring Hill High School January of 2017. And last talking to Dr. Potts, he's doing really well in school.
Right. Well, I do want to say that, I mean, I'm going to be expecting, if this is what the board's will is, I'm going to be expecting results. You know, I want to see bang for our buck.
Mhm.
You know, I want to see in the test scores that things are turning around and that things are improving, because my understanding is that things are kind of shaky right now.
Mhm.
So I'm expecting results, because if the board is making that much of a substantial investment 2 years in a row, that should give staff the breathing room to hopefully get the academics turned around. So,
yes.
But I think another thing that we always have to keep in mind is some of the things we've talked about tonight. Everything is related. For example, you know, we've looked at a $45,000 contract to bring in Skyward to do more training. That $45,000 that we spend could go towards some of these needs that are being requested by these schools. Another example is we've really got to watch our pennies and cents on these new schools. I mean, the cost of these schools right now, we're spending, looking at budgeting, spending about $40,000 per student, okay? And some of the things that we're leaving off, that we're not taking care of as far as our current schools, we're talking $38,000 for the whole school. So it's that much of an effect. And then we can go back to the addition, and I know we've had debate, and I'm not going to, I guess it's water under the bridge now, but there was a lot of discussion about the addition at Marvin Wright. And could we have been able to met those needs? It may not have been optimal. We may have had a portable, but everything affects something else. Think about this. What could we as a board have done to further the needs, the academic needs of our schools right now if we had that $5 million? I mean, we could go all in. And we have real academic needs, and that's what my biggest concern is that we're, and I hope that we don't do this, that we fall into bad habits where we are, instead of using our extra funding to meet academic needs that really are critical right now. And I mean, it is like very serious for our students right now. Instead, what little money that we can scrounge around, we're using it for capital expenses. I mean, right now, we just passed a budget amendment over $600-something thousand, and we didn't bat an eye for capital for maintenance things, okay? And I realize that. These are all needs. These are things that we've got to address. But we, as a board, have to double down on what our priority is. Our mission statement is not about building schools. It's not about bricks. It's not about non-animate objects. It's about students. And we've got to put students to the forefront. And we really, as a board, we've got to put our stamp on that when it comes to budgeting. It should be the last resort that we spend money on capital. Sometimes we have to. We don't have that luxury sometimes. But we should, I feel, as a board member, that we should always insist that academics come first. We will fund academics first, and then if we have money left over that we need to address some capital things, we'll do that. And I know that's difficult because they're both legitimate needs, but we have to prioritize because we have a limited amount of resources. So I'm going to support the motion, but I just reiterate that we've got to really watch these other expenditures I mean, think about tonight too, the $360,000. If that's coming out of fund balance, we could double down on all this.
Yep.
We wouldn't be struggling right now. And so that's why it's so important. These managerial issues have to be really reined in because it's killing us right now.
Yep, agreed.
So what's the plan to rein it in, Dr. Marzak?
So, I mean, we meet weekly to discuss the whole picture. You know, the executive team, Stan Breeden, Ron Woodard, Tommy Schuyler, Amanda, Karen, John, Carl, we meet weekly to discuss what are the pressing priorities? What needs to rise to the surface? What cream rises to the top that goes to the board? So everything that you get, all of these recommendations you get, have been discussed by multiple people around what is in the best interest of the entire district. And I mean, you're exactly right. It would be great if we had enough money to fund all of these things, because when you go back to the original keys list, it's about $4.8 million of requests. And it would have been wonderful to fund all of those things, because those would have helped us make some huge strides moving forward with the keys. But I believe our job and what you've tasked me to do is to try to be as prudent, as frugal, as fiscally conservative as you possibly can, while managing this monster beast and then continuing to move us forward. And those are the conversations that we have every single week. What I add to the board agenda is our best work moving forward to help you guys make the best decisions you can with the information we have at that moment. And as you know, especially what we talked about with adding facilities, information changes. I mean, we just learned Mr. Perriman shared with you 2 weeks ago at the work session. He happened to be in a meeting at the 911 session, at the 911 operations, and they added another 100, what'd you say, about 100,000 unit homes? How many homes did they say they added?
Units?
How many homes?
2 weeks, they added about 2,300.
About 2,300 units. So more information is coming, we're updating, we're changing, and we're trying to bring the best information we have to the forefront. But we're trying to be we're trying to be as precise as we possibly can.
Ms. Flowers?
I just wanted to speak to that in addition to Catapult, which I do think there's some validity to Catapult, but there were some serious administrative staffing changes. Dr. Webb was empowered to make changes in his assistant principals, and I give a lot of credit to that. And you know what? In a system that's becoming systemic and systematic, all buildings have administrators. Not all buildings have Catapult.
I know we have beat this Keys to College and Career Readiness. We have beat this, and the horse is dead, I know, and we are still whacking at it. But honestly, I will just tell you, I still just don't feel like we're getting the best effort. I mean, if it's meeting every week and this is the best effort, I just don't feel like it's good enough. Not for all of our students to get the resources that they need to be successful in life. I cannot, in good conscience, support this. I have serious concerns about what our fund balance is going to be next year anyway. And the things I hear tonight are, we've got to raise salaries to attract new people. We've got to increase this position, this personnel line item. And our role is not to employ people. Our role is to educate children. And so until we take that responsibility seriously, I don't think that we are doing these kids justice. And I don't think that $590,000 for these two items are the correct use of our funds. Our funds are very limited, but we've made some really bad decisions, and it's time for us to stop the bleeding and quit making bad decisions, in my opinion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. Thank you, principals that have come for all these meetings. Sorry that we were not able to take care of your needs at this time. We have an FYI, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Marzak for announcements.
Thank you, ma'am. So if you look at our agenda, Tuesday, December 5th, we also have a board work session. We'll be back here a week from tomorrow. Monday, December the 11th is a regular board work meeting. Friday, December 15th is early dismissal. Last day before the winter break. Monday, December the 18th through January 2nd is a winter break for students. With teachers returning January 2nd, central office will be closed. December 22nd, 25th, 29th, and January 1st for the holiday season. And Monday, December the 18th is a county commission meeting at 6:30.
Mr. Pennings.
Yes, Madam Chair, December 11th, I won't be at the board meeting. I'll be in chilly, snowy Wisconsin.
Well, we will miss you, but we will not join you there in chilly, snowy Wisconsin. So, motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. We are